Hello, lovely viewers, and welcome to Get Well, Stay Well on Revelation TV. As always, you're joined by me, Si, and of course, our lovely Felicity. How are you doing?
Hi there, so I'm really great, and I'm looking forward to this program particularly because we've got an update with Dr. Lee Connealy, who's an American, very amusing girl who I met at the Cure to Cancer conference in San Diego some years ago with Dr. Contreras, so we all spent some time together. Really interesting lady, and she's great fun. She's very dynamic. She comes out with the truth. And then we've got Deliciously Raw Ella as well. So we've really got a super show today.
Excellent.
But, you know, Dr. Connealy comes out and says that we have to have living foods in our bodies. And this is what it's all about with Get Well, Stay Well.
And it's all about education. And it's incredible how we can move with the times. You're obviously using the internet to redo all your research, go on to various websites and watch various videos, and we can use some of these videos in our program today as well. And I guess the information is available there for us if we want to take the time and do our own research.
It really is, and I've done lots of research for this program because we're going into the different foods. And, you know, it's not just for cancer she's talking about, because she specializes in curing cancer in an integrative way. But really, you can read any disease into there because it's all a matter of toxicity and the deficiency of the living enzymes and the minerals and the vitamins, you know, all the things we talk about each week. But, you know, the message is really getting out, and people are getting so well educated on this stuff now, and they're telling their doctors about it. A lot of the doctors are catching on now, and they are actually starting to talk about diet with patients as well.
Yeah.
And it's not just about losing weight, it's about feeding the body the nutrition it needs, you know, the living plants.
Why do you think that is now that the doctors are feeling more freer to talk with their patients about the diet? Is that because of the governments, or is that because doctors are changing their mentality?
No, I think it's patient driven, literally. I think you're right, Si, it's the internet. People are getting much more aware, and so they're just Googling, you know, what is the matter with me? They've been given a label by the doctor. And they think, I don't want to take all those drugs that, you know, they're pushing at me. So what is really going on in my body, you know? And they're starting to question things. And programs like mine are coming out all over the world. You know, there's an awful lot in America. There's Philip Day, of course, who we feature on Revelation as well. And people are beginning to wake up and shall I say, smell the coffee?
Smell the colonics.
Well, then let's not go into that. Let's go into the coffee and the lovely juices, the vegetables that we can do, which are so good. And I'm on a green detox diet at the moment myself. I do it every now and again, about 3 times a year. I get radical, you know, because we all slip a little bit, you know. We start having a few other things.
Do you, Felicity? Do you really
indeed
slip? Because you come across so well on the programs, and I'm sure our viewers think, Felicity, you're juicing all day and long, night and day.
I'm totally honest about it. I say I love chocolate. A Mars bar can be found in the back of Granny's cupboard. All kinds of things are found. But, you know, the thing is that I think this is the way to really treat it, because you know, you've got to be seen to be human, that you have been through this struggle yourself, because otherwise you're never going to convince anybody else.
I think you've got to be real, and you've got to, obviously, when you're looking to change your diet, you've got to do something that is, obviously, situations change, and if you're going for a very serious medical situation, you have to be very radical. But if you're looking to make a lifestyle change and preventing a disease, then you obviously need to be aware of what you're eating. But I guess it might be a gradual process. Would you agree?
Well, it can be. It can be a gradual process, and that's what most people do. When I actually had pancreatic cancer, it had to be a radical process, obviously. So it was easier for me in some ways. And also my health deteriorates quite quickly, even now, if I do fall off the wagon. And so I tend to stick with the things that I know are good. You know, I just love the green juices. We've just got a new NutriBullet. We actually wore our NutriBullet out, which shows how much it's used. And, you know, every day. And I've got a wonderful juicer that I've had, it must be about 15 years now. And it's still there. You know, it's a strong old workhorse. So it's a good one with a heavy engine.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they do tend to last longer, of course. But people can be lucky. I mean, Leslie's been lucky with quite an inexpensive juicer that she's had for ages, and she's had a good one, and, you know, it hasn't run out, and she's probably using it very carefully as well.
Do you think, Felicity, staying healthy for some people might be seasonal? Some people become health conscious more maybe towards the summer, so they look good during the summertime, and they might not be as conscious perhaps during the winter time because it's obviously cold, or I don't know what the reason is. But do you ever see staying healthy can be seasonal?
Yes, it can be seasonal, and it's also what's going on in your life. So if you're going through difficult times, or it's a holiday time, it's Christmas, or you're away on holiday, you know, obviously you're going to be tempted to do different things. So that's why I think the idea of going back, it's an old Ayurvedic thing really. That's the old Indian traditional medicine, that you go back 4 times a year. At the change of season, you do a little detox. And actually, I learnt that years ago, and I thought, that makes total sense.
It's like a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, the change of the season is something that, you know, we enjoy. We say, oh gosh, the leaves are falling now, you know, we're going into autumn, or it's for Christmas time, or it's New Year. And so I think we do get enthused to make a new start, especially New Year, of course.
Yeah.
That's, you know, the classic time, isn't it, when we want to start off new and be healthier, and, you know, I want to breathe better and feel stronger. So, yeah, we sort of really go back to basics, which is great, absolutely great. But I think you'll find Dr. Cornelie quite interesting.
It's very interesting, and this is talking about preventing cancer through plant-based vitamins. Let's have a look at this.
The first and foremost thing is, what are you putting in your mouth? If you eat dead food, you're going to feel dead.
What do you mean by dead food?
So dead food is anything in a box. Everything in a box, if it has a shelf life of, you know, 1,000 years, like you said before, then, you know, it's not going to be good for you. So what is alive? Food has an energy, and you are an energy. So if you want to turn on the electrical energy of your body, you have to eat highly energetic food. So ideally, it would be wonderful if you could grow your own garden. And now they have those beautiful little hydroponification farms that anybody can grow in the smallest space possible. That's ideal. Okay, if you can't do that, there are tons of fields growing everything you possibly could need. So you need to eat foods that come from the ground. They are grown in the ground, and they are taking in the energy of, and you also have to really know how things are grown, because think about it, our fields are depleted of their soil, of all the minerals. So you have to have a conscious farmer who is mineralizing those fields, because the nutritional value of an apple today, it takes probably 10 apples to equal an apple 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So you've got to try to find as nutritious food, and that's the thing, Ty, is that even your food today doesn't have the nutritional value. Let's say you buy all organic at the best grocery store that you have locally. You're probably going to need to supplement. I'll tell you a story. I have this girl who is very into being healthy and goes to all the raw food conferences, and I said, you know what, you're going to be the perfect person to do a nutritional analysis of your blood to see what your nutritional status is. She eats superfoods every day, and she does 10 herbs, and she does all these tonics and everything. I thought, oh my gosh, this will be so interesting to see how she comes out. Oh my God, probably the worst of any patient I've ever seen. Now that's her system. Every individual's an original. So you really, luckily we have all the tools to know what's going on in your body. And then I do have people that they have beautiful nutritional
Do you see this video quite stuttery?
And so, usually, I'll be honest, most of those people are doing you know, lots of supplements, okay? And you have to be careful about supplements because you want supplements as natural as possible also. Instead of taking like a synthetic multivitamin, you want to take a food-based multivitamin, most likely. Or if you take any kind of supplement, you want to get it as close to nature as possible. Because I remember years ago, I saw a picture of vitamin C. And it had, and they have those special cameras that take care of, holographic cameras, right? That take care of vitamin C, and it had a vitamin C synthetic. And then you take a picture of vitamin C natural, it looks like this beautiful flower. So there is a big difference between synthetic substances and naturally grown substances. For example, Indian gooseberry is a great substance for vitamin C. Amla berries, and there's all different herbs and berries and all kinds of things that are great sources for certain vitamins. And so we want to get as close to nature as possible when we can.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that with us for today's program, Felicitas. It's so, we're talking about educating ourselves, and when we see videos like this is just highlighting how the importance of us staying healthy is.
Absolutely, and I thought it was quite interesting what she said about the hydroponic gardens.
Yeah.
And I have seen hydroponic plants being grown in Jersey, actually. We have a carnation farm that's grown on water, and also tomatoes grown in water. And it is an amazing new way that we can actually put nutrients in by putting nutrients into the water that the plants are grown in, because you know the soil has become so deficient.
Yes.
We're always talking about that. So the hydroponic vegetables that are really good to grow, herbs, so you can easily do mint and parsley and coriander and cumin and all those sort of things.
During the winter month, they're fantastic to put into soups, aren't they?
Absolutely, it's wonderful, and the goodness in these things is really great. You know, we sort of think, well, mint just grows like a weed in the garden, but in fact, there's a lot of goodness in these things, especially when you juice them. I
was going to say, Felicity, what can we use, mints, herbs, how can we use that in our day-to-day diets?
Well, you can start juicing them in. Now, I find that the parsley, because I grow masses of parsley up in the eagle's nest, and mint, and I've started juicing those, putting them in with juices and blends. And they, you know, they taste wonderful. They're really fresh. And of course, they've had no chemicals sprayed on them because I'm in control of what happens on the top up there. They're not being sprayed like the garden down below is.
Yes.
And I notice when I do go down to the garden sometimes, there's a real aroma of chemicals. You know, there's a real smell. You say, wow, what have they been spraying with today? So everything down there is being sprayed. But up the top, and I'm on the 4th floor, so you know, we're a little bit cleaner up there.
And what if you're,
the hydroponic things is really interesting because they can, this is grown in warehouses. So you can control the air as well.
Because my question was, what if some of the viewers watching us today, they're living in flats, for example, they don't have a terrace, they don't have the fresh air coming in, can they still be growing these kind of herbs?
Absolutely, they can grow all those lovely herbs, the tarragon, the thyme, the watercress, that's one of my favorites, that's really good. And really the surface vegetables are the best ones to do, not the root vegetables, obviously, because you know, the very thing that they're growing down below right in the water, it's slightly more difficult. You can still do it, but the best ones are obviously lettuce and spinach and beans and peas, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things that actually sit on the top of the earth. So they are really good to do hydroponically. And it's interesting that people who come from desert countries and countries where the soil is really depleted are starting to grow hydroponically.
Right.
And in Singapore, where there's very great shortage of land, as you know, it's a very small area, but intensely populated. So what are they doing? They're growing these vegetables and herbs hydroponically on the rooftops.
Wow.
So this is really quite interesting.
What are the main causes of depleted soil, for example?
It's just overuse. And in the Bible, in Leviticus, you know, it says that we should rest the soil on the 7th year. When you have the year of the Shemitah year, you know, every 7th year is very important in the Bible, and that's when we're supposed to be resting the land, but of course we're not. And it's also the way that we've been spraying with things like glyphosate, which is a herbicide that is an absolute toxin and you know, should not be allowed at all, but it is still allowed, and it actually kills the way that the plants can regenerate. It's a desiccant as well, so it dries things out. And you'll see, you know, we saw pictures of Vietnam and fields absolutely desiccated and dry, so they're dead. And this is the problem, that glyphosate is used in UK, it's used in parts of Europe. Some of the countries like Denmark and Sweden and Hungary are into good organic stuff, and they have actually banned it. Wow. Russia, I think, has banned it as well. Wow. But of course, it's all about business, as I'm always bringing out the fact that it's food lobbies, you know, and a lot of money is made out of this stuff. I think it's Monsanto, Bayer, the big German chemical firm that have taken over Monsanto. And interestingly, they're now actually trying to grow hemp and cannabis, but in a genetically modified way. So they've put the frighteners and everybody over ordinary hemp and things, but then they're going to produce one that they approve, which will cost a lot of money. And it's all about the money. So
explain the process of, in comparison to when we're talking about our diets, the types of food that we're eating. Let's take bread as an example. From the moment that we eat a piece of bread, what does that do to our body?
Well, you see, the bread turns to sugar straight away. And the bread has now been sprayed with glyphosate. So we're actually getting a dose of a toxic chemical in with our bread. And bread is not as it was in Jesus' day, as I keep saying, you know. It was the Emma wheat, which was the good, pure wheat in those days, and now it's the semi-dwarf wheat, and it is sprayed, and they've genetically modified things. So this is why we can't rely on those kind of breads. However, there are some beautiful little artisan shops where they're making real bread, and we can make real bread at home. You know, we can get spelt flour, and we can get other good flours that are organic, and we just use those instead. So there are ways around it. Irish soda bread is nice, for instance.
Brilliant. And what about the process? When we have the fruits, fresh fruits, vegetables, and juicing, when we've drunk a juice, tell us about the process. What happens to our body internally?
Well, the first thing is it rehydrates us. Okay, so for breakfast we should always rehydrate. Even if we don't eat an awful lot for breakfast, you have a juice, start rehydrating. And then the juice actually goes into our bodies and is absorbed very quickly, almost like an intravenous drip, you know, of goodness to go into the body. So it feeds us without using a lot of energy. So it's much easier. I mean, if you have an egg and bacon, it's delicious to taste, as I used to do for all my family years ago. But everyone's quite tired after that, you know. It's like Christmas lunch. Yes. So everyone's falling asleep on the sofa. But you know, we just live and learn, don't we? We really live and learn.
And anyone who's watching us today and they may be suffering from cancer, for example, what are the main foods that, first of all, they should be avoiding?
Well, it's the animal protein, because again, the animals have now been so contaminated with antibiotics, with steroids, with growth hormones. This is why women are getting breast cancer, men are getting prostate cancer. So when they contact me and say, what am I going to do? The first thing I say is come off the animal protein and explain why. And I think when you understand why, it's easier to accept something that you don't really want to think about. You know, some people think, oh, I could never give up meat. You know, I need meat. I'm a big, strong man. But you don't need prostate cancer. That's the end of the story, basically.
And if you are suffering from cancer, the main sources of food that you should be focusing on, obviously, you've got the juices.
Because you've got to, if you've got cancer, you've got to detox and you've got to restore the living enzymes. You've got to get energy back in. The mitochondria, the ATP, that's the adenotriphosphate, that stopped working because we're so toxic. And so the cells are not being able to regenerate. They're just proliferating more unhealthy cells. So we've got to stop that process happening and then start rebuilding. So we do the coffee enemas as well, which detox us big time and give us something called the adenotriphosphate. is made in the body again, because we get the glutathione,
Yes.
which the body makes as a natural antioxidant. And when you start regenerating the body, Si, people do get well.
Is there a particular ingredient that some of the viewers are watching us today that is so key to their health, to their diet, to what they're juicing, for example? What is the number one ingredient that we can use to prevent cancer, to overcome cancer? What would you advise?
Well, you know, the basis of the green juices is cucumber. So it's firstly, it's high water content, and it's also got all the vitamins in it. It's also avocados. Again, they're green. They've got lots of the goodness in them, the sprouts, which we can grow at home in little boxes, you know, the sunflower sprouts, the buckwheat sprouts, wheatgrass, for instance. I'm big onto wheatgrass again now.
Yeah.
And as you build the body up again, the body will recover, and blood picture will change within 3 or 4 days. I mean, this is, you know, God is so good to us because he's the God of second chances.
Yeah.
And so we can recover. It's wonderful news.
Excellent. Well, we often feature Deliciously Raw Ella on our programmes, and it's quite interesting. We often say, what do these health people, what do they eat on an average day? Well, let's have a look at Deliciously Raw Ella. This is an average day and her diet.
So if I was going to describe my favourite day of food, which is pretty difficult because I kind of want to eat everything, obviously I'm quite a foodie, but I think for breakfast, I am obsessed with porridge. I know people think that's quite weird, but it's so good. And there's a creamy coconut porridge that I do, which I just love. So I cook oats and I soak them in water, and then I cook them with coconut milk, a little bit of coconut oil, banana, which kind of dissolves into the oats. So everything's really sweet and creamy. And then I put some almond butter in, and then just top it with, I love my toppings, like berries, honey, more nut butter, kind of anything you can think of. And that's my favorite breakfast. And then for lunch, I love my breakfast and dinner. My lunches are normally kind of easy things, so things like a stir fry are really good. I love just using any veggies like red peppers, mushrooms, that kind of stuff. Then with tahini and tamari. Tamari is a gluten-free version of soy sauce, and tahini is like a creamy sesame seed paste, a sort of a peanut butter, if you think of it in that type of consistency, but it's made of sesame seeds, so it's more savoury, which is really good. And again, it makes quite a creamy dressing. And then I'll have that either on its own maybe, or with brown rice or quinoa or something if I'm feeling a bit hungrier. And then I'm a bit of a snacker. I love my afternoon snacks. So my kind of go-to are dates and nut butter. And no, it's a little bit boring, but I love dates so much. And if you just spread some almond butter on the top, they're really good. And then for dinner, I'm kind of, at the moment, obviously it's a little colder outside, I'm kind of all about my curries. There's a recipe in the book that I'm obsessed with, which is a Thai coconut curry, and it's made with fresh ginger, and then miso, chili, coriander, and then in that you cook aubergine, squash, and chickpeas with a coconut milk and tomato sauce, which is just so good, and then have that with brown rice. And that's a really nice one as well, because obviously I love eating healthy food, but I know that some people are always a bit nervous about it. And that's the kind of dish you can literally feed to anyone. No one's going to look at it and think, wow, this is so scary. You know, I don't even know what this is. It's very familiar and comforting. Whereas if maybe you're trying to convince someone in your life to try healthy food and you give them a kale salad, you might love it, but they might run away. So it's kind of good in that sense.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Deliciously Raw Ella there. So Felicity, we're talking about staying healthy. What's the best way for us to start the day in the morning to give us that energy to help us through the entire day?
Well, her porridge breakfast is good for us, you know, and it's old, it's traditional. The Scots have it with water and salt, Himalayan salt, of course, not the naughty salt. And certainly you need to have a good breakfast. So sometimes I can get away with just the juices or a blend. Sometimes I want some porridge. If it's in the winter, it's cold, I'll have some beautiful porridge, which of course actually settles the blood sugar for the day. Mm-hmm. It's really good for the body to get that in as a starter. And she uses the coconut milk with it, which is so healthy. Mm-hmm. As we know, in Sri Lanka and places like that, people don't have heart disease because they live on the on coconuts, the milk, the water, the flesh of the coconut,
Yes.
and put the oil on their bodies as well. So, you know, basically she's sticking with the healthy things, and we don't have to have cow's milk. We could have hemp milk, we could have almond milk, we could have oat milk with our porridge, but just to get that start in the morning.
Yes.
Always a juice as well, because you've got to rehydrate the body. You know, we need a glass of water basically every waking hour. We need to get that liquid into the body. And if we don't, then the blood gets more viscous, joints start to creak, you know, the whole body gets dried out.
If we look at we're obviously living very busy lives, and if we say there's one meal that is the most important meal of the day, and we hear it's been breakfast, what would you advise? What if we can only focus and have time for one proper good meal a day? What would you say?
Well, you know, I think that the lunch is the most important, because our digestive fires are the strongest at lunchtime.
Right.
So if you have a light breakfast, that's fine, but you've got to get nutrition in at some time. And in the evening, maybe you don't want a very big meal, because that might stop you sleeping so well at night. So I very often just have a lovely hot vegetable soup at night, which would be great and highly nutritious. But lunchtime...
Homemade? Would it have to be homemade?
Well, it's much better. I mean, we just made the gorgeous one last night with onions, you know, lots of onions in, lots of tomatoes and some herbs. It tastes wonderful. I mean, compared to anything out of a package, it's, you know, completely different. And it just tastes so good.
Yeah.
So good. So really, it's going back to God's diet. Again, the herbs, the fruit, the vegetables, seeds, nuts, and green plant. And yes, go for a good lunch, basically, if you can. That's difficult for people when they're working, I know.
Yeah. So if they were going to be practical and they say, okay, I'm going to prepare my lunch in the morning and take it to work with me, what would you advise? Okay,
some nuts and a NutriBullet. I don't know if you've still got a NutriBullet in here. I don't think you have. You have to get you another one. I think it's really, really good that you guys get out for a bit of fresh air and sunshine during the day as well.
Right.
Because you're in the studio, and you do need that vitamin D on the body.
It's interesting because we're talking about the practical ways of staying healthy, and quite often we don't think the amount of water we're drinking or just fresh air, sunlight, like you say. Felicity, we're coming towards the end of today's programme. If viewers wanted further information, do you have a website?
I have indeed. It's felicitycorbin-wheeler.org and hippocratesineurope.com. Masses of free information, because I just want to get the word out there to people.
Thank you so much, Felicity, for joining us. Thank you so much to our viewers as well. Hope today's programme's been interesting. If you want to see the catch-up, then please do log on to our website, www.revelationtv.com. Thank you so much indeed, viewers. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. God bless. See you soon. Bye.